Hey folks, Rich here, South Florida Beekeeping with Rich. Happy Thanksgiving, everyone. Yesterday was Thanksgiving, which makes this November the 29th.
But they won't see it for two
But you won't
weeks.
see it for a couple of weeks. But if you're in South Florida, you know that we've been in a nice long spat of really beautiful weather uh, under a high pressure dome, no rain, cool to moderate temperatures, nice and warm in the afternoon for working bees. And as you can see behind me over there, all the hives have been put back over into my double wides because after giving the other an experiment for a season, I went back to my double wides. I like them too much. And everybody over there and over here got fed for a Thanksgiving dinner, but the girls in the Poppleton hive didn't. So I had a thought about that, and we're going to take care of that today. Now, if you watch me regularly, you've seen the video that I did on these Chinese feeder frame, okay, with the great big cells. And what I've done here is I had to reduce them from being deeps to being mediums. So there's 3-inch sections here. So I went out this morning and I trimmed them all up and I put them together on one frame so that we can actually use them to feed the Poppleton hive, because that's the one thing I have not been able to do is feed the Poppleton hive. But it's like, you know what? This should be perfect. Now, one of my viewers commented that he would just take and put dry sugar in here and spray it with water. Yeah, you could do that. I'm going to just go ahead and do what I normally do. I mixed up damp sugar. This time, instead of using a third of a cup, I used a half a cup. So it's a little bit damper. And we're going to fill this up and pack it in. And then we're going to go over and put it in the Poppleton hive. And we're going to talk about the inspection I did in the Poppleton hive this morning. Oh, let me show you something real quick before I get all these filled in here. I know I'll spill a little bit of sugar on the ground, but we got plenty. For those who, I didn't think to do this the other day when we were doing the video on this, but just to give you an understanding, that's the angle of these cells. Okay? They go down in there, so stuff holds in there pretty good.
Does that mimic the angle of an actual
Yeah, yeah.
frame?
Or a little bit more than, and certainly not less than. I got this out because I just wanted to be able to pack some of this stuff in here. Feels like it's going in pretty good.
You could also roll it over the top like a rolling pin.
Yeah, that's why I got the silicone spatula here. So this morning I came out and did an inspection on the Poppleton hive. I'm not going to bore you with it, but basically the bees seem to have read the regular manuals, but none of them went out and got any of the old Poppleton manuals because they're not paying any attention. They are building all to this end.
We can't see you, honey.
Okay. Well, I'll
Your
talk
arm's
about it.
behind your body.
All right. I'll talk about it when we get over there. Woo. Okay. Well, I started with 5 pounds of sugar here, or 4 pounds of sugar, I'm sorry. And it's looking like this is a whole lot more sugar than I give a regular hive in a single feeding. What's gone into this frame. That's good to know. That's good to know that you can really get a lot of sugar into one of these frames. And there's no reason not to pack it in here, because it'll stick just fine.
Is there a thing as giving them too much?
Oh, well, this will probably be the only sugar they get. So we're almost at the 1st of December, and our nectar season really starts in early January. So you want to have more bees available. So if it's November 29th, 30 days have September, April, June, and November, so it's 30 days. So somewhere around, I start feeding these bees now, and they get stimulated, then they will be hatching out brood around December 21st, December 22nd. By then, we will have a whole lot of stuff blooming, and they will be right on top of it. But this will probably be the last feed. Well, this is the only feed they're getting, and it'll be the last feed for those others because they don't really need it. I fed them day before yesterday. All right, I think we can call that good. I don't think
That's packed.
that's packed. Now, if I had done this and it all fell out, boy, wouldn't I feel like a fool?
Are you going to further dampen it with water? I'm just wondering,
Well,
will it help the sugar to stay in the...
I brought the bottle just in case because this is the first time trial for everything.
And I don't really know. I'm just kind of wondering.
Well, it looks like I'm not going to anyway. Well, there we go. Finally
Oh, that's
picked
it.
up.
You don't want that spray.
No.
Yeah, that's better. It's a mist.
Well, of course, the person suggesting this was thinking more in terms of the fondant that they use up north, where yeah, you put it in, you can spray it in water like that and let it dry. Well, I like damp sugar. I don't really want it to dry. It will eventually, depending on how quickly they take it. But now now I am going to. I took all the frames out. That wasn't
Oops.
good. I took all the frames out that were dry. You can see that, okay, that small hive beetle that just flew off there, so that I can put them in the freezer. But then I decided I wanted to feed them. So this one is honeycomb and a little bit of drone comb. Those other two are mostly brood comb. So we're going to put this frame back so they have a little extra space on this. So now we'll get over here, and I'll tell you what was going on in here this morning. So this morning I came in and wanted to see, remember we had seen a small hive, or sorry, a wax moth larvae, so I was losing a bit of sleep over it. But what the bees have done, my follower board is all the way to here right now, almost to the entrance. Everything back here are empty frames because I took the full frames out, put them in the freezer, then stored them inside. So, but if you go this way, the last frame I left them had one little patch of nectar on one side, but things are going to be getting bigger. So I left them that last almost completely empty frame. This end, the last frame, is fairly dry and nectar on the outside, but on the inside, it's got nectar in every cell. And by the time you get to the second frame, you've got almost honey status nectar all the way around. And by the third frame, you've got beautiful patches of brood, cat brood in there. So this end, so obviously what they're doing is going to this end. Poppleton used a center entrance. If I were to design another one of these, I would probably go ahead and use an entrance at the end like we usually do in beekeeping today, because it doesn't look like they're favoring the center entrance like I'd hoped they might. I wanted to see how that was going to work out at any rate. So all this is empty back here. But we're going to take the follower board out. And we're going to take, all right. So there's the follower board. Let's get a third one out of here just so we can adjust whatever we have to adjust. I'm going to put this frame in here, which if all things were equal, they wouldn't need right now, but we're about to make things not equal. We're about to give them a great big sugar rush.
Are you worried about ants with all that sugar?
No, not terribly. Oh, the reason we did that inspection, we had ants over here, was because I'd had the hurricane strap on everything. And the hurricane strap overlapped from below the pans here and came up, and it gave them a super highway this wide from the strap to run up in there. Once I went, oh, duh, bent that back where it went, refreshed the grease, and haven't had an ant problem since. It was just a duh sort of thing. So we're going to put empty frame there. We'll just go ahead and move all these forward. Why I love to make my long bar type hives with a lip on the inside back here so that I don't always have to be too detailed oriented on this. Hang on. Just want to get rid of that cockroach. There you go. Okay. So, oh, it's one other thing I wanted to do before I did that. Let's pull two of them out of here. Yeah, so there are a few, not a lot, but since there are a few small hive beetles in here, I'm gonna stick
What
a
are
few.
those?
Well, these are a cheap Chinese ripoff of the Beetle Barn, and they have Combat Max roach bait plus a little sprinkle of pollen that I ground up tightly in them. So we'll just stick those in there, and hopefully the attractants and the bait will bring in what few small hive beetles are hanging out in here. I mean, there's no pollen, so they're not really interested in doing anything back in at this end, except hanging out of the way where the bees aren't going to bother to chase them. And there we go. It's funny, I know that the first use I made of these feeder frames wasn't the ones that I trimmed down to size for a standard use, but actually just used the scraps, put them all together to make a feeder frame for this. But that was kind of in my mind back when I ordered them, that I might be using the cut off pieces to do something in here. And it worked out that way. So we'll come back a week from now and we will check out this frame and we will add that bit of video to the end of this. So I won't say goodbye for now, but I will say like and subscribe and be sure to hit your notification button so that you get notified every week when I put out a new video. You need to wait a week in order to come back and see what went on with the bees and the sugar. That video that you were just watching a second ago was filmed around noon. By 4 o'clock, there was already a growing pile of sugar under the hive. You can pan down now, dear. But over there, so they were dumping the sugar out the vent hole in the bottom, the screen bottom board piece. It wasn't until that was Friday, Saturday afternoon, we started seeing a little bit of sugar being dragged out the front. And there's a little, and they've cleaned most of that out. A little bit out the front. Most of it's just been dragged and dumped right out the bottom piece there. But since there's still 4 pounds of sugar in there, I'm going to leave the frame in until sometime next week, see if they get some benefit from it. But obviously, these bees, never having experienced sugar, identified it as a foreign object they wanted removed from the hive.
Do you think it's because of the way it was packed into the frame and it was mostly dry?
Wasn't mostly dry. It was damp sugar, the same way in fact, it had more lemon juice in it than the damp sugar I use on all the hives. And there have been times when a group of bees would take that out of the hive to start with, and then I would take a spray bottle of water, spray the sugar down a little bit wetter, and then they go, "Oh, okay, we get it now." And from that point forward, there's never been an issue. And yeah, in part, it's drier than nectar. I've had this problem occasionally with bees in the past. The first time I give them damp sugar, that they start recognizing it as something else. Then I go back and spray it, make it a little wetter. They click on what it is, but the same hive has never done it twice.
So what's your plan?
My plan is just leave this here for a couple of days, the way it is now. Then I'll take that out, and if there's still sugar piled in the bottom of those cells, I'll hit it with. Actually, why don't we just do it now? We can try to take it out and hit it with a stream of water and see what they do in the future.
Are those just holding? Oh, I see.
No, it's just a place to store them. Basically, it also happens to keep things cool in the summer. All right.
He's going to the mailbox of hidden tools.
The single greatest contribution to beekeeping I've ever made was using a mailbox in the bee yard. Actually,
I think that was one of your very first videos, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was. It's like, you know what? This needs to get out there. Let's see if there's anything left in here.
Well, they seem to have done a really good job of cleaning out the sugar. But it looks like, are they cleaning it out at the bottom or are they eating it?
I'm going to hope they're eating it. Wow,
yeah.
What a great job they did at cleaning it out up there, because I mean, these are downward sloping. That didn't fall out.
No.
That got methodically and carefully removed. But they look more like they're
I don't think
cleaning
the sugar on the bottom there's enough mass to have been all of that sugar in there.
Well, no. Bring your camera and look down in.
Oh. Oh, they seem to be eating it though. Now, I mean, I can't really tell. What do you think?
Well, I think that a moment ago I was going to want to squirt this with water, but now there's so many bees in there, I don't want to do it.
I think you better leave it alone.
Yeah. But I'm not going to take it out. I'm going to put it back in.
I guess we'll know in a few more days whether they ate it or dumped it all out.
Of course, you can see here I have a dustpan with me, so I'm going to clean that up down there. If another pile appears, we'll know that we'll cleaned it out.
Well, yeah, we have to do that because otherwise, how will we know?
Oh, that's not what I'm doing. I'm doing it because I don't want ants.
Well, ants.
But it helps that it's like, yeah, that'll be interesting to find out. Okay, so I guess if I wanted to continue using this, I would actually have to try to make fondant the way they do up north and pack it in tight and hard and let it dry and then put it out there and see if they'll accept it.
I wonder why bees will accept dry, hardened fondant if they won't accept dry sugar.
Damp sugar.
No. You have to dampen the sugar because they won't accept dry sugar. So why would they accept dry fondant?
I don't know. But obviously they do. So
I think that's an
It's
experiment
just
we need to do.
it's just not one we ever need to do. We're in South Florida. Fondant isn't something we normally need to think about. In fact, it would be counterproductive because most of the time it's too hot and the
Not
fondant,
now.
yeah, the
It's only
fondant could
it's
melt.
68 degrees here today, and it's December 1st.
I don't know. This still seems like something worth trying. I'll just have to do some more experimenting. Thankfully, this is a topic that everybody and their brother has done up north, so I should find lots and lots of information on it. And we'll give it another shot.
Well, let's give it a few more days and see what else happens.
Yep,
You're going to clean up that sugar so we'll have a clean slate,
yep,
and then we'll know.
yep.
So the question is, what is happening to the sugar?
We'll see if any of it's being used or whether it's just all going out the door. Oh well.
Stay tuned.
Stay tuned. Okay, folks, it's a week later. It's Friday a week later. And we could have done this video on Tuesday just as easily. If you look down there, you'll see that they cleaned out most of the rest of the sugar. So I'm going to call this a complete fail. It's more to do with the bees probably than the sugar because these bees have never been given damp sugar before. They didn't really know what to do with it. So that being said, I'm going to just go ahead and take this apart a little bit, take that out, take those other frames out, and I'm going to give them some 2-to-1 syrup because everybody is bringing in pollen, and it is mid-December, and by January, we will be in the middle of our spring bloom. So we're going to speed this part up because it's boring.
So this is basically a fail as far as damp sugar is concerned.
I'm just going to say damp sugar in this hive. I'm not going to give up on putting damp sugar on the regular frames and putting them in the regular ones that are used to occasional feeding with damp sugar. But just wanted to give this a shot, and yeah, it didn't work so well. Don't want to aggravate them too much.
So you're just going to give them sugar? Is it 1-to-1?
No, that's not quite 2-to-1. I put an extra bit of water in there, but it's almost a 2-to-1. I'll say this about these frames: you can't put them in backwards. Not without trying real hard.
So no follower board?
I'm not going to bother to put it back in there. Um, so front's going to come through in a couple of days. It is going to cool off a little bit. Right now, the temperatures are in the high 70s. So I'm not too concerned with it for the moment. If I hear that we're going to be getting nights in the 50s, I'll come out and put the follower board back in.
So, conclusion about that feeder frame.
Well, I haven't done enough experiments with it to come to any final conclusion on it, but it doesn't seem to deliver my favorite feeding method very well. I like damp sugar above all else, because if there are resources in the environment, the bees will ignore damp sugar and go for the resources. And that may be all that happened here, but I don't know why it would bother them so much that it was just sitting there.
What about fondant?
Again, I've never really made fondant because I'm in South Florida. I really don't need winter feed. I mean, today, Fred Dunn up in, was it Pennsylvania, he's got feet of snow on the ground from a blizzard that came through yesterday. And it's a little warm out here today.
Yeah. So
yeah,
fondant's
different.
not an experiment that you're going to do with this feeder frame.
I'm going to have to do a fondant experiment.
Okay.
Because I think that's was one of the. I think what this is really intended for, as much as anything, was giving dry pollen substitute to, and that's really what I had in mind when I got this. Was making it. I want to do some experiments using pea flour, and that's just PEA. Okay, that's not that's not soybean, that's not peanut butter, it's not pea as in, peanuts, it's actual green pea flour. Because lots of experiments that have been done since the 1950s in India consistently show that it is the best uh, pollen substitute for a protein source and nutrition for bees. So I've gotten a bag of it. I'm going to do a little more research on it, and I'm going to try an experiment. So in about a month, I'm going to make some pollen substitute. I'm going to put in some dry pollen substitute and see what they do with that. And if they drag it out, okay, they drag it out. I'm going to make some pollen patties up using pea flour, and I'm going to put it in the regular ones of these, and I'll probably put some in this and give them to them too. Just give them an early spring. Although I'm not sure I need to. If you'll look, there's lots and lots of pollen coming in January, the first week in January. I want to have that experiment going on because that's when we need to give them a little bit of early pollen. So this has been Rich. This has been Beekeeping with Rich. Not everything we do is an outstanding success.
But that's why we do it.
But that's why we do it, to find out, yeah, it looked like a great idea. And it certainly harkens back to what was being done in the 1800s, early 1800s for that matter. But yeah, why we've come up with better ways since then, I guess.
A rapid feeder is a better way.
Oh, I love my rapid feeders. Of course, I can't use it on this unless I build an entirely different kind of top for it. And I didn't really want to do that. I wanted to try it this way first. So that's been it. Be sure to like and subscribe. Let all your friends know. Have happy holidays, Merry Christmas.